Okay, good evening, everybody. I am Janie Herman, the manager of adult programming at Princeton Public Library, and it is my great pleasure to welcome you tonight to the first of 6 educational lectures that the Princeton Public Library is doing in partnership with the Princeton Festival this season. The library and the festival have a long history that goes back to the fledgling years of the festival, more than 15 years ago now. And over the years, we have partnered to offer more than 75 educational lectures, as well as dozens of workshops on opera and musical theater, and other special events such as movie screenings and an annual musical preview event. We are so glad to be able to offer this series this year via Zoom and look forward to returning to in-person events next season. We hope that you will join us for all of the educational offerings this season. They are on the library's calendar as well as the festival's calendar, and replays will be going up on YouTube for everybody to enjoy. We have so many great topics that we'll be exploring: Baroque music, opera, and more. But now, tonight's event. And so without further delay, I'm going to turn the evening over to Gregory J. GEEHERN, who is the acting artistic director of the Princeton Festival. He will introduce tonight's event and the panelists. Welcome, Greg.
Well, thank you so much, Janie, and it is exciting to moderate this panel discussion, which kicks off the festival's 2021 season. And wherever you may be, welcome to this special event. So, welcome to the Princeton Festival's panel discussion, Dreaming, Undreaming, creating an interdisciplinary event with the Chicago-based Kosmologia Collective. My name is Greg GEEHERN, and I am the festival's acting artistic director. This event, as you well know, is co-sponsored by the Princeton Public Library, and I want to personally thank Janie Herman and Janie's wonderful staff at the Public Library for playing a pivotal role in making all of this possible. I would also like to acknowledge the Princeton Festival's Lecture Committee, particularly Lainey Colesrud and Marcia Bossert, for spearheading our 2021 lecture series, which of course includes this exciting panel discussion. Since we are welcoming many viewers from outside the Princeton area and even around the world, I will give a few words of introduction about the festival, which is now in its 17th year. The Princeton Festival is a world-class performing arts festival featuring opera, musical theater, chamber music, jazz, interdisciplinary works, and world music productions presented in a variety of Princeton area venues each June. Our nonprofit organization was founded in 2004 by founding artistic director Richard Tang-Yuk and a small group of dedicated volunteers. The festival also includes education and outreach programs for arts lovers of all ages, and our annual piano competition draws outstanding young performers from around the world. Tonight, Carmen-Helena Téllez and her artistic team will discuss the challenges and adventures of creating a new interartistic event with the interdisciplinary collective Kosmologia. Commissioned by the Princeton Festival, the new art music video, Dreaming, Undreaming, was inspired by 2 tales of the masterful Argentinian writer Jorge Luis Borges, The Library of Babel and the Aleph, and will premiere via live stream on the festival's YouTube page on June 17th at 7 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time. Dreaming, Undreaming creates a unique visual and musical experience, an art music video where we travel between worlds of persuasive dreams and deceptive realities in our universe. A piano recital progresses seamlessly between original compositions created specifically for this project in conversation with the music of Johann Sebastian Bach, the master of polyphony. Dreaming, Undreaming establishes a conversation between the piano recital and a series of highly original videos. So without further ado, it is my great pleasure to introduce the members of our panel. Carmen-Helena Téllez is a Venezuelan-American composer, conductor, interdisciplinary artist, and producer, and is the artistic director of Kosmologia. Working with her ensembles, universities, and festivals, she remains a proponent of interartistic genres and new music in the US and abroad. She currently is a professor of music at the University of Notre Dame in South Bend, Indiana, and before that, she taught at the renowned Jacobs School of Music at Indiana University, Bloomington. NATASHA STOJANOVSKA is a Macedonian pianist and composer who has toured through the Americas and Europe. She is a winner of the American Prize, among other prizes, and she is currently working on her first CD with works by Eastern European women composers. Camila Tosi is a projection video designer, producer, and musician devoted to performance recontextualization and accessibility. She has created for Apollo's Fire, the Prototype Festival, Yale Opera, Mass MoCA, and the Berlin Opera Academy. Rylan BELOCK is a projection designer and interdisciplinary artist based in New York City who synthesizes video design, music, and movement. Recent collaborations include Dear Evan Hansen, where he was the assistant editor, and Blue Man Group, where he served as the video operator. Alexa CAPAREDA is a dancer and choreographer and ballet master at Ballet Austin in Texas and co-producer with groups in Austin, Texas. She won the 2017 Austin Critics Table Award for Excellence and the third prize at the 2013 Festival of Choreographic Miniatures in Serbia. So without further ado, I invite everybody to turn on their cameras, unmute themselves here, and we'll start with the first question. Welcome, everyone. Okay, so my first question is to Carmen Téllez. And full disclosure, I have worked on many interdisciplinary projects over the years. And so my first question is directly related to my experiences running into audiences and patrons when we talk about interdisciplinary work. And so first of all, my question to Carmen first would be, what do you mean by interdisciplinary, and how does it differ from, say, an opera or a musical theater or what we call traditional proscenium works?
Well, thank you, Greg, first of all, for this invitation to greet your audience and to bring my colleagues in the project Undreaming to discuss how we work together on this project. An interdisciplinary project is defined by the fact that if you were to take away any of the component art forms, the piece would lose its meaning. So the music is affected by the visuals are affected by the music, the dance affects the visual, vice versa. So it is really an exchange ways of creating, and the approach to the creation tends to be non-hierarchical, exchange ideas from the very start.
Okay, so thank you, Carmen. And so what is Kosmologia? And I'll throw this out to you first, Carmen, and then we'll open it up to the rest of the panelists. What is Kosmologia? What was your thinking behind it? And how did other folks get involved? But we'll start with you, Carmen.
So this will sound a little different than the usual way that projects and organizations like this take place. Kosmologia is originally a creative research project. I started doing research on interdisciplinary presentations for music, specifically where music was acting in combination with other arts. And this is something that I did on and off for many years, but started with regularity in 2005. So already 15 years ago, 51 years ago. And when a project would present itself with a particular problem, interdisciplinary problem, then I would just set out to find the artists that I would love to work with. And but by the year 2014, I became convinced that this was going to be my mode of operation. The first stage of my career was as a conductor. And as a conductor, I did a lot of mainstream formats, concerts in mainstream formats. But in 2014, I decided that I was going to dedicate the bulk of my activity to this. And so I named this series of attempts at the Interdisciplinary Act, Kosmologia. And I based it in Chicago, and the artists that you will meet today, some have been working in projects with me for many, many years, and others I have selected for this particular project for Princeton, for their particular gifts, their special gifts for realizing the concept of dreaming on dreaming.
Great. And so I actually want to hand it over to Natasha, because of course you're playing the piano beautifully throughout the video, and I got the video yesterday and I saw it from beginning to end. And for our patrons, you're really in for a great treat. And so Natasha, my question to you is, had you done any interdisciplinary projects like this before meeting Carmen? And can you just tell me a little bit of history with that? Or if you haven't, what are the things and what are the challenges of doing an interdisciplinary work versus doing a concert, say, in a recital hall?
Awesome. Yes, thank you so much. I'm glad you were able to see the video already. And thank you for inviting me. It's an honor to be here. Yeah, I never had an experience like this before. Never. I had a number of virtual recitals during this COVID period, but I never had to do interdisciplinary art done virtually. So which was, like you introduced earlier, a challenge and adventure at the same time, in a positive sense, because I had a great direction by Dr. Tellez, Dr. Carmen-Helena Téllez, who provided a great scenery for me, because I recorded the piano of these works long before I saw the video. So I had to have a lot of more imagination than I would have if I was to present a solo piano recital, or even if I was to present this project in person. If I was to see the dancer in front of me or see the images, I would be influenced. But it was the opposite, the reverse. I had to imagine and try to create something based on the description I received as I was preparing the works. One other interdisciplinary project I did was also with Kosmologia, but I would think, Carmen, if you could probably better explain, that was a project that we premiered, another work by Pulitzer Prize winner Shulamit Ran, and it was another project in Chicago, but all the artists were together on stage, so that was different.
Wonderful, wonderful. And just as a follow-up, and I know different artists have different perspectives or different opinions about this, is it more challenging for you to perform, say, for a camera without an audience versus performing in front of an audience?
Yes, I'll try to answer that quickly. Otherwise, I will take hours, because yes, it's much more challenging. It's breathless. It's breathless not to have your audience. I recently gave a recital in Chicago also for the Henry Fogel series, and I was alone, on my own, and I did not realize how much I needed the audience presence in order to breathe, musically breathe. I was breathing, I didn't suffocate, but musically breathe and allow the flow to lead me. I was feeling so lonely, and so it was very challenging. It's very difficult for a solo piano recital, for sure. For me personally.
Sure. Well, thank you, Natasha. And so before I ask the next question, I just want to remind our viewers this evening, I also have a message in the chat just to remind you, but if you would like to ask some questions of our panelists tonight, feel free to type them in the chat section, which is at the bottom of your Zoom screen, and make sure it is going to the panelists. I will be screening the questions as the evening unfolds, and we'd be happy to hear from you, and I will choose a few questions, and at about 7:45, we'll start asking them. Okay, so feel free to ask whatever questions you'd like, and we will do our best to answer them. So that being said, I just want to ask a question to Ryan, because of course your resume includes Broadway productions. And so just on a basic level, how has this project differed from how you would approach and how you would produce and how you would do projections, say, for a Broadway production like Dear Evan Hansen, for example?
Sure. I should preface to say I'm certainly on the assistant level of Broadway, so honored to be, playing such a small spark of the brilliant creativity that happens as part of Broadway. And it's encouraging to see signs of life and things starting to open up, certainly this fall. And so like with many other professions, this past year has been a challenge to adapt and to find new modes of communicating and working. But to a large degree, a lot of things have stayed the same. We've found ways to engage with audiences, although digitally, that hasn't changed much as far as our mission to serve the storytelling and the dramaturgy. Certainly with this project, the challenge of video design is capturing those best moments to create a very nice condensed sort of supercut of all of the moments that were captured on camera. So being able to share those with the audience and condensing those into a nice, shorter version was the challenge. But, like with Broadway, like with other off-Broadway shows, that ephemeral quality of video design and projection design is very much the same as music. Everyone misses sitting there in the theater or the concert hall and hearing and feeling everything together as a community. So we've tried our very best to capture that same feeling and same expression and emotion through this project, so that you do have waves of emotion and feeling, and even multiple viewings, you may have different experiences of this project itself.
Absolutely. And I'd love to pass the virtual baton over to Camilla. And Camilla, I'd love to hear your perspective on this, because of course you design production or opera productions, and I know you've done video and interdisciplinary and projections and other things for early music ensembles all across the country. And so how do you approach, say, what the Kosmologia Commission is versus what you would do for, say, the Berlin Opera Academy?
Thank you. At the heart of it, a lot of the conversations are similar. I do think that classical concerted music is a bit newer to engaging with interdisciplinary approaches. Opera and staged works are a lot more used to it in a sense, and they work with lighting designers, scenic designers, costume designers all the time. And so I've found in my experience that that's more, it's been like experimented with more. But something that I love about, and actually I have a particular soft spot for concerted music, is that it is just as much storytelling. It is just as much, actually, it even engages interpretation, imagination even more sometimes. In this piece, we didn't have words to, go from, but we had the playing and we had the movement and we crafted the narrative together. And it's been a bit also an effect of the pandemic that more and more groups have been pushed to play with these mediums and really question with intention, why do we present works this way? Who are we including in the conversation? And so that's one of my favorite things about, I love it more than staged work sometimes.
Well, it's interesting you mentioned that because, I think we're getting a little. All right. Okay, let's give that another try. I think we're better. Okay, great. So, and I want to, of course, ask Alexa, who is our wonderful dancer / movement artist in Dreaming, Undreaming. And my question to you, Alexa, is, of course, did Carmen give you the concept of what you wanted to do with this? And how did that work? What kind of artistic freedom did you have in this particular context?
My first point of contact, thank you again for having me on here. Actually, yeah, there's Chia, my buddy. So my first point of contact, oh, hi. My first point of contact to the project was Ryan. We had very briefly worked together on his project for the New Works Festival at UT Austin in 2015, I believe. And he introduced me, he introduced me to Carmen, and she laid out the project, and they already had a wealth of discussions and information about the inspirations for the piece, and some of the music for me to listen to as it was, being composed and finished. And Ryan and I met and talked about the vision of the project and his sort of piece of it. It was very much felt like a collage between all the different players in the with Camilla's videos of Natasha and Ryan's what would be Ryan's editing of my videos. So he sort of just gave me a shot list and a sense of what the piece would be. And I think we had a really, we were simpatico on sort of what he needed. And so I just said, I'll start coming up with some videos. And luckily, Chia lives right across the street from where I work at Ballet Austin. And we were able to meet up. The first day, we went on like a 3-hour walk around downtown, just scoping out locations. And what's amazing about this type of interdisciplinary project, which I also have had quite a bit of, luckily enough, here in Austin, a bit of experience with creating interdisciplinary work and working with people, and very used to dance for film and working with film artists. But Chia was just right on and immediately took on the role of director of photography and location scout, multiple roles, and was just helping me film and frame things. And she would go like, okay, this looks good. Look over here, what I see. This is what I see. This is what I think would be really cool. And she can talk about this too on how we ended up at, but we just had a lot of fun, and we would send things over to Ryan for feedback. He would come back with, oh, actually I need more shots of this, why don't you go back to this same place and just do a little bit more of walking. Yeah, it was really easy because it gave room for a lot of play within the world of the piece, which was very clear from this ginormous Google Drive. There's like layers and layers of, I think, 12 different folders of just inspiration, videos to watch, which really like helped me get in the head game for what we were supposed to come up with. So
wonderful. And so really the recurring theme I'm getting, because you're all speaking so freely about what you're able to do, and there's a real emphasis on the non-hierarchical principle. I know every team needs a leader. You can't be, I guess, completely non-hierarchical in a way, but it's far less hierarchical than many of the productions we normally see or take part in. And so now that Chia Patino is with us, I'm so glad you're here, Chia. Let me just read her bio really quickly. Chia Patino is the faculty stage director of the Butler Opera Center at the University of Texas at Austin. Previously, she was the artistic director of Ecuador's Sucre National Theater, and she is a regular guest with companies in the US and abroad. So welcome, Chia. And so talking about non-hierarchical productions, I would like to ask both Carmen and Chia, what does non-hierarchical mean to you, and how do you put that into practice in real time, oftentimes in a world that is very hierarchical in its current setup?
Do you want me to start, Carmen? I apologize. I forget that there's a change of time because we in the equator don't change the time. It was just.
That's right. You're in Ecuador right now, aren't you?
Perfectly on time for the seminar. For the webinar, I thought it was in an hour, so my apologies.
All good.
I think a word I like a lot is interdisciplinary, because by default, the word breaks the hierarchy. You know, it's like it's many disciplines that are interacting. And that's a principle I actually lived by as a stage director. I prepare a lot, I study a lot, I know what I want, but 20 brains are way more creative than one. I love to work with artists that are completely charged with ideas and flexible as well. And I think one of my strengths is to look at somebody and realize that's better than what I thought. And I don't have any problem like twisting it in a second, say, okay, we're going that way. I think as a stage director, I've done that with all my collaborators. I've plenty of times I get convinced by an artist and a designer, a singer, and I don't have a problem with that. I think when every artist that is involved in a product feels that their opinion matters, you usually get a much more powerful product. I believe that as a stage director in this product, that was a lot. With Alexa, we met and immediately we were, and as she said, it was really fluid. Let's try this, how about that? And for me, it's been really fun to see how Camila and Ryan interpret that and how they piece together and where the things fit together, because that I had no idea. And sometimes it's like playing like one of the angles, which Alexa, you probably remember, where I was just like, I'm gonna shoot this camera, I can't see anything. Let's hope we get something. Because I was like extending it with a stick and it was against the ceiling and we're filming with the iPhone. And so I'm just amazed on the shot itself. You would think that I knew what I was doing. But that in Spain, they call it duende, you know, it's like in the muses are the same thing. It's this little spark that kind of does guide you as an instinct. And
Sure.
Many times you arrive where you were supposed to, which sometimes is more powerful than where you plan to. So that's where I think.
Exactly. Carmen had mentioned in a session before this that it's almost like a tree and it grows and things kind of form organically and then things are passed off back and forth. Carmen, do you want to expand upon that? Because you're probably much more eloquent about it than I am. So take it away. Oh, Carmen, you're muted. Oops. Well, that's okay. So in any case,
Can you hear me?
Oh, you're here, Carmen. All right, great.
But now you turn your camera off.
The problem is that I switched out of my computer to my phone because my internet is stable today. We have had a storm here.
Okay.
So if you can hear me, I don't know if you can see me. I think it says my video is stopped.
That's fine.
Anyway.
Feel free to speak. Yeah.
All right.
My question.
So I was going to say that there is a method to the madness, you know, with the apparent madness. What happens is that I was inspired by this, by reading Borges, and what you are going to see on the 17th of June is in no way an emulation or a recreation to any story by Borges, but rather an homage to his ability to create many realities at once. We were inspired by that DNA, let's say. And so at the different stages of creation, all the artists contributed to each branch of the tree that was growing. So for example, the first idea was to decide if there was any kind of axis or any kind of a central experience, and the central experience was indeed this duality of the two realities, one that might be a dream. And that led us to how the music was chosen and composed. And once that decision was made, you see, one thing is born of the other. So an artist can create freely and at the same time be sensitive to the central thrust of the piece. And so that's why at the very end, it feels like a being comes alive. It actually comes alive in a way out of its own internal DNA. It's kind of a very wonderful process. Like Chia says, it has a spirit, a duende in it.
Does anybody else from the panel want to add to that? Or talk about your experiences related to that? All right, that's okay. All right. So, no, it's quite all right. No, Chia and Carmen summed it up quite well. So, let's see. Let's just get to the meat and potatoes of all of this. And why don't we have Carmen start, but then I'd love to hear all of your perspectives on this very general question, but I think it's an important question. What is dreaming, undreaming? And what should the audience and what should our patrons expect? Carmen?
So to expand a little bit on what I said just recently, it is a representation of two or more realities that are happening at once. And one, besides that general thrust, the audience will recognize a lot of experiences we all go through, and let's say there are main characters, so to speak, in the video. Their scores is our wonderful pianist, who is essentially, you would say that the video is a piano recital, and it is a piano recital. You listen to the music from the beginning to the end. You can close your eyes and listen to the music and as a recital. But the music has activated all these other images. And in the images, you have these characters, and they go through what may be a day, maybe many days. So, but its logic is an internal logic, so to speak.
I see. And Alexa, of course, you're featured very prominently within all of these images. What are your thoughts about just these two different worlds, and how do you present that in a certain way to an audience, and also presenting it to an audience in a way where, as Carmen alluded to, it allows each person watching the video to create, in a way, the performance for themselves?
Yeah, so I think, I mean, if anyone has read Borges, it's like what the amazing thing is, it really activates your imagination. And I think Dreaming and Undreaming is sort of that kind of experience which tries to capture the ephemeral like moments of how we go through our day. So it both feels short-lived but also timeless, in that it doesn't have like there's a very vague like timeline narrative, but it also is not, it's not a straight line. It's very, it goes in various directions. And so I think for me, I love imagining just like interdimensionality and just the way that we interact even with objects. And I think there's the amazing way that Ryan and Camilla have done the layering of the videos. I think it really captures that essence, and the experience of watching the video is to feel the music, and it's a whole like sensory experience in a meditative kind of way still too. I think you can really get lost in get turned upside down, and there's this one beautiful moment at the end, hopefully this is not a spoiler alert, but where the piano keys like almost turn into buildings, and because I'm on this parking garage and dancing, and you can see it just emerge, and you think they're buildings, but then it very clearly manifests into the piano. So there's things like that happen, which you just kind of, it washes over you. And yeah, I hope that they enjoy that experience.
All right, so similar question about these various worlds to our video artists. We'll start with Camilla and then go to Ryan.
I feel that a lot of really key things have been said, and I also feel that Dreaming Undreaming is kind of an intimate piece. It's very, like, you get to be kind of up close to, not only the characters, but even the spaces. And, and when I think about it, we all filmed our own spaces that we were in.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think Camilla froze. That's okay. As soon as Camilla comes back, that'll be fine. Ryan.
Sure. I related to everything that's been said. For me, Undreaming.
It is colored by our perception.
That's all right. Camilla, can you just say, go back about, I would say 20 seconds and just sum up what you said? Your video froze.
Do it backwards.
No. Yeah, do it backwards. I think, we were all filming things in our own spaces, in our own apartments, and there's something about like inward, like an outward, like reflection. So it's a very, like, it's kind of an emotional piece. So even like everyday objects can kind of like hold this sentimentality to them. Mm-hmm. And sort of in conversation with the music, it's so much more about the image you're seeing, but how also the image is making you feel, and the sort of duality of that.
Fantastic. Ryan.
Sure, I relate to that. It has sort of been a project that has manifested itself to us, and as artists, we're used to kind of being the creators and managing that in a very direct way. And for this project, we have kind of, we've cast our egos aside in more ways than one to just kind of let the project kind of manifest itself. So it's been like the musical and performative manifestation of just, being able to relax a little bit more, listen a little bit more, the way we live and think through our days. The past 15 months have been far different than anything we've been used to before. So for me, it's kind of just been the organic and mechanical manifestation of that. We talk about building these video worlds and these alternate realities, and I should point out I'm very thankful to Zoe Crow, who assisted on building some of these really visceral moments, which were a direct line to our storyboard, which was from those Google documents full of hours of conversation since last winter, since even December, November. But that all comes to this moment where you're finally getting to share, what all that has become and been compacted into. So, yeah, the idea that you're seeing multiple realities and the way that our time and thinking, the time it takes to think about things has certainly changed. I think it's been a really great way to reflect on that, whether Bach or not, or you're into new music or not. It certainly is a reflection and a really great way to meditate on how your life has changed over the last year.
For sure. Thank you, Ryan. Y'all are so good at transitional sentences. And so I wanted to talk about Bach and ask Natasha about, well, really the role of Js Bach in her preparation of this project. And you had mentioned that there were many ideas, there were many moments of inspiration. And in the best way you can, how does the music of Js Bach, particularly many selections from the Well-Tempered Clavier, fit into this sequence?
Yes, thank you, Greg. Yeah, I'm still just reacting on what everyone commented, that I needed a second to consume everything that I heard, because it was amazing to hear how all the artists had their own personality in the project, equals interdisciplinary art. So I really loved hearing. Thank you. So I think that for us as pianists, Bach is usually he's our father, grandfather, and everything above. And so to bring Bach into a concept of dreaming, undreaming, when Bach is so everything, his reality to us. As a pianist, if you're not able to follow a polyphonic texture, that's where you will be tested, right? That's what we work for, right? So bringing his music into such a project was very interesting. I'm not sure if I have the right vocabulary to explain, but I certainly felt that the selections of the particular preludes and fugues that Dr. Carmen selected, as well as her own promenades that combined all those pieces together. I think that once I heard it as a whole, once I started to practice the whole piece as one, I started to see how I could relate to it when I'm dreaming and undreaming, and try to bring some images into it.
Wonderful. And you make a great point about the original compositions. And so I would love for Carmen to talk a little bit about her own compositions for this project, how you were inspired by the music of Js Bach, and what was your kind of macro and micro plans vis-a-vis the effect that you wanted. Carmen, are you there? You are muted.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, I can.
Okay. I'm leaving a dreaming and undreaming situation here with switching between my phone and my computer. So Natasha has explained this so beautifully, because once we had decided that we had this travel between two types of reality, or a reality and a dream world, I also perceived that Bach was like the reality. And for the listener, especially the expert listener that loves Bach, when you hear those preludes and fugues, especially performed by Natasha has an incredible insight on this repertoire. It's just absolutely gorgeous, and I cannot wait for you to hear it. But it is music that you are familiar with and that you have heard for a long time, and that you probably have your own mental associations with this music and feeling associations with the music. And it will be like coming home in a way. But the challenge was to leave it and move to a world that you do not know. And so that was the process of the promenades which I composed just to connect the whole recital together, like entering and exiting a familiar world into an unknown world. So there was a metaphor implied there. Now, the promenades are structured on harmonies that Bach wrote. So in a way, they are the airs, in a way, of Bach's own composition. But that is their purpose, is to connect what it is indeed a Bach recital, and with the recital and the music, all these images that Camila and Ryan developed with Alexa's dancing and Chia's dramaturgy to create this world that plays together. They become a single thing at the very end, one unit at the very end.
Wonderful. So we have a question from Carrie Paretta, who is a great guild member, wonderful supporter of the Princeton Festival. And I just want to make sure, Carrie, that I give your question the justice it deserves. And she asks, given the magical realist aspects of Borges, was there an advantage to making a video instead of a live performance, especially during the pandemic? So I open it up to anyone who wants to comment.
Well, Chia perhaps wants to comment on this, since she's a stage director.
Can you repeat the question, because it cut a little bit?
Sure. Given the magical realist aspects of Borges, was there an advantage to making a video as opposed to doing an in-person performance, especially with the COVID situation of the last year?
The thing that I'd love to caution people is that Latin America kind of lives in this reality. It's not, oh, by the way, there's this extra magical thing, that so many things make no sense that we just take them as part of the reality, you know. So magic realism is not a word that Borges invented. It's not a word that Garcia Marquez invented. It's a way that the people that are not Latin, that cannot understand the chaotic situation in Latin American. I mean, I as a kid, and as a kid, I mean, by 17 years old or something like that, when I was reading 100 Years of Solitude, I remember seeing a cloud of yellow butterflies and talking to my friend and saying, I bet you Mauricio Babilonia is close by, let's go and chase the butterflies. And we kind of knew it was a lie, and we kind of knew, we're wondering, is like, what if there is a Mauricio Babilonia on the other side of the butterflies? So we live this line of blending realities, very much so. Video is the perfect medium to break gravity, to break timelines, to juxtapose images, to see two realities at the same time, like there are butterflies, which means Mauricio Babilonia. And by the way, we're in the middle of the city, so that is supposed to happen in the jungle, but it doesn't matter, you know, maybe you follow and then you'll end up in the jungle. I was telling once a friend, one of the stories I grew up with is like, if you hear a baby crying in the like early 2 in the morning, 3 in the morning, that's the devil collecting souls. And I'm not a scary person, but I tell you, if I hear a baby crying at 2 in the morning, I'm not walking out on my own. It's like, and I am not, what is it? What do you call it when you believe in things like number 13, bad luck? I like superstitious. I'm not superstitious. And yet there's many things I find myself doing, thinking, okay, that makes no sense, but I still do it, you know, crazy things. And so video allows to play on reality in a different way that we're used to perceive. And that makes it magic realism. So it is the perfect medium to allow to do that. And it's fantastic when you ground with something, because I love, by the way, Natasha loved the Bach. It was like the sound, somehow, this is a composer that wrote so many centuries that connects perfectly with this medium. I think there's magic realism right there. You know, it's like, I don't think Bach would have thought of it, but if he's seen it, I know he would love it. You know, it makes sense. So in that sense, yes, I think these interdisciplinary mediums and the way that it happened actually with everybody in their own spaces and start, let's film it and let's plan it and let's shoot it and let's green screen this. It actually started doing this. Is like from everywhere you created one product, and that is magic realism, because it's real, but it has magic.
Yeah. I wanted to add and to thank Carrie for the question. The question is very perceptive, because what has taken place is that video practices and video genres have taken over in a way during the pandemic. They had already had a lot of play, like Camila will testify to this. She gets asked to do a lot of video for live performances, and Ryan, they get to do a lot of video for live performances. But in this case, this is more like a music video or like an art video. But if we had been doing it in a live situation, to answer Carrie's question, then we would have had a completely different work, because the context affects perception. Once the space where you perform becomes another artistic element that also speaks to the artist in this particular modality of interdisciplinary presentation. It would have been magic realist in a completely different way. It would have been a different piece, essentially.
Chia?
I'm reading the chat, and I'm gonna add on Carmen's answer, because David Marshall, your question on the interaction and how we had planned, because we had a plan, and then COVID happened, and that's also for Becky. Is like, yes, it's a magic realism reality, and part of the plan, and the reason I remember a long time ago, and I don't know, guys, if you remember when we thought it would be nice to do a one act, and we have this less than an hour, and then have a nice intermission and have the audience start choosing the order of the pieces, and like maybe this prelude first, maybe, and then have a second version with the input of the audience. But that's when we were thinking, for sure in a year, everything will be open again. We're almost open again. But I think this piece, it would be, I would love to see that on how the audience, you come up with a majority of votes that they get to say, let's start here, let's go there. And how that will, let's play it this way, which is what Cortázar did that on Hopscotch, you know, where like you get to choose the order of the chapters. But it was such a capsules, this and this, that I myself would love to see that. Is like someone says like, no, after this moment, I want to see this moment. And after this, or that we even talked about, wouldn't it be cool that you put it and everybody can do their own order? But that requires way more technology than what we can do right now. But I really think that would be fantastic, that you create a piece that everybody does their own order. And it becomes something like Hopscotch, where you can play it 20 times and each time make your own choices on how it goes. That would be fun. So that's the way we had talked about it, David, at some point. And I would love for it to happen, actually.
Right. And
There's
David,
a chance. No, sorry to interrupt. There is a chance we will do it that way in Chicago at the Air Taxi Festival, that we will have one version and then a second version where the audience, we're working on the methodology for that. So we'll see.
absolutely. And David Marshall also had a follow-up question that I would love the panel to address. And we've addressed it tangentially, but I'd love to just attack it head on. So how does this piece speak to the circumstances of society today? A message, a medicine, an expression? So, floor is open.
So, well, I don't know, Camila or Ryan or Alexa have an insight about that, or Chia? Otherwise, I would like to say that the piece, the core of the piece speaks a little bit about what we have been living for the last year. There is an implication of seclusion because you are dreaming, if you take that message. And then there is an implication that then you begin to reconsider what is important to you, what your reality should be. And then there is a possibility that you might need to create it on your own, lacking all the interactions that you were used to, that you were probably unconscious of, and that now you miss. So there is a little bit of a reference, like a parallel experience represented in the video. But it's not like we consciously went out to, let's do a video about the coronavirus seclusion. No, it's just that we as artists are responding to what we went through in a kind of a organic manner.
Well, that's great, Carmen. So the final question, or if anybody else want to comment on that?
Well, yeah, I just wanted to say really quickly that, yeah, relating to that and how someone in the chat also said that they felt that these past months have been magical realism. And I think it's also tapping into that sense of pace and how the pace of many people's lives have changed drastically. And I mean, I find myself now, as we enter into what was normal before, having to remind myself of the good things that I found through the pandemic and what slowing down can do. And I feel like this video can be that meditation and reminder and reflection on what are the things that we've taken from this difficult time and how can that move forward and once the busyness and everything picks up again. So.
All right, great. Thank you, Alexa. So my final question, and I guess this could be a question that could be answered by any one of you, but where do you see just the interdisciplinary ensembles, arts, etc., within the next few years? And maybe for Carmen especially, where do you see Kosmologia down the road?
Well, I think interdisciplinary art has been here for a while now. You know, there have been some important movements like the Fluxus movement and video artists that have addressed current society problems and issues like that. But I think it will become more of a norm for the mainstream of classical music, because classical music tends to be always a little bit behind, because it's an art form that requires so much inner work, so much virtuosity in realization. It always takes a while to kind of metabolize all the trends in society before classical music joins certain more progressive trends. This has been happening like that over the years. What I would love for the projects that interdisciplinary projects that I engage with teams of artists. First of all, I hope that I can keep working with this particular team, which has been like one of the happiest experiences of my life. I mean, it's an extraordinary team of people. It's a pity we only have 1 hour to talk to them. They are just extraordinary, and they all have their own special projects, and they all have inspired me through their projects, because they are incredibly vivid. And so it would be a great privilege for me if that were to happen. But I see projects of classical music, so-called classical music, art music, as I call it, to leave the conventional stage and to go into unexpected spaces, which is also happening. I've done several projects like that. Chia has certainly done many projects like that. So because to reach out to people where they are, because some people sometimes do not come to projects of classical music. They find the whole protocol of concert going a little off-putting. It's a mistake, but it happens. And then I also think that there might be some new technologies, digital technologies, immersive technologies, something that would allow people to enjoy music by being surrounded by it. Like, for example, for those of you who have a projector, it would be nice to watch this video on the inaugural night or any other nights afterwards, because I believe you all have the right to watch it again through the festival. Do not watch it on a screen, but to actually project it on a wall or someplace where you feel that you are part of it. And I hope that new technologies come out to provide that experience to people so that they can have immersive experiences at home or in the theater, more accessible, not as a rare thing, but as a daily thing, something interactive, something immersive. When those technologies arrive, we want to be there to assist the artists and the developers to be part of it.
Absolutely. Well, that's a great way to end. So thank you all for participating in this panel discussion this evening. And I want to thank our panelists, Carmen Téllez, NATASHA STOJANOVSKA, Chia Patino, Camilla Tosi, Ryan BELOCK, and Alexa CAPAREDA for their time and their expertise. And
there is another question, I think.
Oh, Takako has a question. All right. So let's see. Takako has a question. All right, we're waiting for that question, Takako. And in the meantime,
I love to compliment what Carmen talked about while we find the question. Do we have the time though?
It is 8 o'clock on the dot.
Time is fluent.
Of course.
I don't see anybody telling me turn it down.
Okay, Janie says we can go over, so, but I won't try to waste your time. Thank you.
The funny thing with Zoom, you can always just leave. So, but really quick. Sorry, I'm in Latin. The thing with interactive multimedia and with Carmen, indeed, we've been doing this forever. And remember, Carmen, my recital when I was a composition student, I did a spatial piece in the recital hall where the audience was supposed to move and find which ensemble you wanted to listen to. And I really believe that the audience is catching up to where a lot of performers have already been in there. Interdisciplinary is one, but immersive art is a completely in thing, you know. It's like I see the Van Gogh thing going all over the place. There's nothing, I mean, it's amazing to be able to jump in it. We love to go to the movies, but I really believe on the necessity of the audience, live audience and live performers, because there's the chemistry that you get between a performer that can feel the audience and returns to the audience. So I love technology, but I love it when they all mix together, and it's not that everything is gonna now start being on a screen. I love that the video now has quit being just a back screen and is so much more entwined with the product. So I think the pandemic pushed the arts to catch up with technology and push technology to really grow up to where it's not just entertainment, but to try somewhere a level of sound improvement. So I think that was a good thing to do. And indeed, with classical music, we live in the 21st century. You know, it's like the audience expects and feels different than what they felt in the 16th, 17th, and 18th century. I think if Mozart was alive today, he would be using synthesizers and video and 3D and mapping and spatial sound and everything he could get his hands on. He was a man of his own time. So what we're calling multimedia is just because we have more media available to us, more colors. And I love it that this pandemic pushed people to venture more. I think people have seen things that they would maybe have never ventured into a theater. And so a level of curiosity because we had the time. So yes, multimedia is here to stay, but I'm so looking forward when it's live plus multimedia.
Absolutely.
Audience.
I mean, even working for the Princeton Festival, it's just all of the things we have learned from the pandemic, especially when it relates to technology. I mean, those are things I'm going to be carrying forward when we're able to meet in person again and we're able to put on certain productions, whether they're traditional operatic productions or more experimental productions. So it's been a blessing in disguise in that sense.
Right, exactly.
So yes, Camilla says, agree. To Chia's point, the Baroque was a period where they first experimented with stage machinery, deus ex machina, pushing technology and live performance, and for us to continue that with that intent. Agreed, very much so. And kind of speaking from experience, I know I worked with Carmen on a big interdisciplinary project at Indiana University where we did the Passion with Tropes by the composer Don Freund, who is a composition professor at IU. And with video folks and with musicians, we almost created an immersive Sistine Chapel experience. And so there were video projections on 4 walls, but then you also had video projections on the ceiling as well. And we always like to believe, and again, I probably shouldn't speculate, but when we talk about artists as being products of their own time and responding to the times, one can imagine Michelangelo, if he had access to that technology, that he could paint or decorate a chapel ceiling using things that are available to him at any given time. So that really resonates.
So that's absolutely true. I'm glad that you brought up that project, Greg. For those of you who do not know, Greg is a great singer, and he was co-conducting with me in that event as well. So that was just a lovely time. Natasha has some final words about, I believe, about the piano recital experience, which is in a way like the central column of this project, as we said before.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, I know that we're short on time, so I just want to quickly say that it was a true enjoyable experience to do the recording, and I want to express gratitude first to Carmen-Helena Téllez for inviting me and being such a great leader for me, and I learned a lot, and the project was a joy. And I also want to thank the entire team for all the great work, and a special thanks as well to Rick Bolton, who was the sound engineer, who is not present here, but I'm quite sure he's listening to us. He did a spectacular job with the audio that he provided from my performance. I couldn't have done it without his great.
Wonderful.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you so much. And so I want to thank you all for participating in this discussion. It went in directions I didn't expect, and that's fantastic. And I thought it was just a wonderful conversation. So if what we talked about tonight really entices you, we are, of course, going to premiere the video here at the Princeton Festival on Thursday, June 17th at 7 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time. And I am putting the web link to purchase tickets in the chat right now. So click at the side for more information about Kosmologia itself and how to purchase tickets to the June 17th stream. You do not want to miss it. So click on that link. You'll go to the web page. You'll see a little box that says buy tickets. Hit buy tickets, and then it'll take you to where you need to go. Also, there is a survey also in the chat. And if you have the time, just please take 3 to 5 minutes, click on that survey form and just complete it. And we'd love to know what you thought about this discussion, what you liked, and what we can do to improve here at the Princeton Festival. So coming up on June 7th, we have a great lecture by John Burkhalter, who's an early music specialist at Princeton University, who will introduce the Baroque programs for our Baroque chamber ensembles. June 8th is the first Baroque chamber ensemble concert at Morvan Museum and Garden in Princeton. June 9th at 7 p.m. is the Artist Roundtable discussion sponsored by the Princeton Festival Guild. And that will be on June 9th at 7 p.m., also via Zoom webinar. And then the second Baroque concert will be on the evening of June 10th at 7 p.m. at Morvan Museum and Garden. And we crown out the week, or we finish the week on June 11th with, of course, Marianne Gray's lecture on 19th century Parisian opera. And that will be on the 11th at 7 p.m. So for more information about this and many other programs, just go to our website, princetonfestival.org. And once we record all these lectures and once we premiere all the performances, if you have purchased a ticket to any of these performances and lectures, you will be able to watch them and repeat watch them if you have purchased a ticket until the end of June. So that being said, thank you to all our panelists this evening. Thank you to Alexa, Chia, Natasha, Carmen, Ryan, and Camila. And a special thank you to Janie Herman of the Princeton Public Library for really being invaluable in making all of this possible this evening. Finally, thanks to all of you who tuned in tonight. I hope you had a good time. I sure did. And again, don't miss the premiere of the Kosmologia video, Dreaming, Undreaming, on June 17th at 7 p.m. It's a Thursday night, and thank you so much. Everybody have a good night, and thanks for joining me.
Good night. Thank you. Good night. Good night, everybody.
Good night.
Bye-bye.